The legacy media is finally admitting Ukrainian forces are indeed collapsing. We're going to see the latest bombshell article from Politico and what it really means for a new geopolitical realignment that's about to redefine the 21st century like never before. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor, here to help you stay sane during these insane times. So make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Also, with everything going on right now, it's hard to say what could happen or what will happen, but when it comes to your money, you should understand what's at stake. So that's why I partnered with Goldco. You guys know I'm a big fan of hedging future risks with the timeless value of gold and silver, and that's why you have got to click on that link below or go to turleytalkslikesgold.com to get your free gold and silver kit. It's an amazing free resource that shows you step by step how to get into precious metals tax-free and penalty-free, even if your money's still in a retirement account like an IRA or a 401k. And the best part is that you may already qualify to get up to $10,000 in free silver. You know, you've seen the writing on the wall. Click on that link below or go to turleytalkslikesgold.com to get your free gold and silver kit, because this is about taking back control of your privacy and your freedom. We can't predict the future, but we can certainly prepare for it. So don't wait. Take action now to defend your freedom, your privacy, and your future. Click on that link below right now. Politico dropped a proverbial bomb yesterday in a revealing piece that admitted that the Ukrainian front lines are indeed on the verge of collapse. According to Politico's report, high-ranking Ukrainian officials are painting a very, very grim picture. Essentially, they're admitting that wherever Russian forces decide to attack, anywhere along the lines of Ukrainian fortifications, anywhere, those fortifications are so weak, they're so spent, they're so depleted that a Russian offensive could crash through anywhere and penetrate those front lines and bring them all toppling down. Interestingly, Elon Musk is seeing the same thing. He tweeted out that even though Moscow is, quote, no chance of conquering all of Ukraine, which, of course, as we know, Moscow's never had plans to do. Nevertheless, quote, the longer the war goes on, the more territory Russia will gain until they hit the Dnipro, which is tough to overcome. However, if the war lasts long enough, Odessa will fall too. Now, that's correct. I don't see this ending until Russia takes Odessa and completely landlocks what's left of Ukraine. Ironically, Zelensky himself seems to be admitting this, though he's using the threat of Ukraine's impending collapse as leverage to try to get Republicans in the House to give him tens of billions of dollars more of your tax money. Regardless, it appears rather clear at this point that the situation for Ukrainian forces is dire, perhaps more dire than it's ever been in this two-year conflict. And yet, astonishingly, the adults in D.C., led by Speaker Mike Johnson in the House, are making a fresh push for sending tens of billions of dollars more of your money to Ukraine. Why? Why on earth, especially in the midst of these reports on how dire things are for Ukrainian forces, no matter how much money we send them, why on earth are the adults in D.C. doing this? Well, the answer to that is actually rather simple. It's because Ukraine is not the only thing that's collapsing here. Russian foreign policy expert Glenn Deason has just published a very important and timely book on what the significance of the Ukraine war really is for the entire world. Deason reminds us of what once was what we might call the old unipolar world order, meaning a world order governed by a single superpower, in this case, the United States. After the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991, we were the only great power on the planet. The Soviet Union was dismembered, having lost a third of its territory overnight. China was still rising in the 90s. It was thought to be economically primed to eventually go liberal. Remember those days? Same with India. It was still up and coming. In fact, India was still relatively socialist and rather poor at the time in the 90s. There was no great power rivalry to the United States. And as such, the United States was able to basically set the rules of the game of the international order. We wrote the rules. We governed the organizations and institutions such as the WTO and the IMF, and we insisted that every nation abide by those rules and institutions. And that world order lasted about 3 decades. What Professor Deason and other scholars have noticed, however, is that that world, that unipolar world where the United States existed as the sole superpower on the planet, that world is dead, or perhaps more accurately, dying. And the reason for that is because so many of those powers that were dormant in the 1990s have risen up as great political powers. We're seeing it in the rise of China and India, Turkey and Iran and Saudi Arabia, and yes, most especially in the renewed Russian Federation. And what scholars have noticed is that this new civilizational rise is increasingly replacing that unipolar world with what's called a multipolar world, a world with a number of great political and economic powers that are challenging the United States hegemony over the globe. And this is why a number of scholars, such as John Mearsheimer of the University of Chicago and George Kennan of Harvard University, and the author of Containment Strategy Used During the Cold War, and a number of others, including even the late Henry Kissinger, they all recognize for over a decade that NATO's incessant and stubborn eastward expansion right up to Russia's borders, a policy that began and was instituted during the unipolar period, that policy was indeed going to erupt into a full-blown conflict with Russia based on the dynamics of great power politics. In other words, all great powers, basically superpowers, all of them defend what's known as their hegemon, their sphere of security interests. So you'll notice that the reason why the adults in D.C. are more worried about borders 10,000 miles away than our own is because they consider the whole world their hegemon, even though they couldn't even conceivably give an intelligible answer as to why defending Ukraine's borders rather than our own is in our national interest. But the Russian Federation certainly can do that. Ukraine is right smack dab in the middle of their hegemon, what's known as Eurasia. And what many scholars warn was that NATO, in its incessant eastward encroachment towards Russia's borders, NATO was risking a major military backlash from Russia, comparable to the way the United States pushed back against the Soviet attempt to arm Cuba in our hegemonic region. Dismissing Russia as a bunch of drunken oafs doesn't change the fact that the Russian Federation has indeed renewed itself as a major hegemonic force in the Eurasian theater, a force that China recognizes, India recognizes, Turkey recognizes, Saudi Arabia recognizes, Iran recognizes, the whole of the African continent recognizes, Brazil recognizes. In fact, it seems everyone but the leaders of the United States recognize that. Or maybe they do. You see, in the end, Professor Deason and others see these massive military aid bills as really nothing more than a last gasp effort by the dolts in D.C. to try to hold on to the waning world of unipolarity. It's permanent Washington's desperate ploy to salvage what the rest of the world is increasingly turning away from. The hope here is that perhaps, just perhaps, defeating Russia will defeat one of those great power competitors and bring to heel both China and India, who've become rather close with Russia over the last decade. Were the dolts in D.C. able to do that, perhaps, again, just perhaps, they might be able to hold on just a bit longer to this seemingly fading unipolar world order. But gang, it's not going to happen. Russia ain't going anywhere. If anything, Russian forces are only going to further their territorial gains. The unipolar world is over. The sooner permanent Washington comes to terms with that, the sooner this tragedy of great power politics will come to an end. Hey gang, if you always wanted to explore historical cities with a group of courageous patriots, well, now is your chance to embark on an exclusive adventure with me, Dr. Steve, and other patriots like you as we set sail on the Mediterranean. You're invited to join us this August on Royal Caribbean's luxury liner, the Voyager of the Seas. You'll get to spend time with me and other like-minded patriots during live onboard classes as we dive into topics like the rising parallel economy, the culture wars, and how you can share my optimism for a conservative renewal. We'll discover enchanting architecture, timeless artistry, and breathtaking experiences as we adventure through Spain, France, and Italy. Enjoy incredible dining experiences, enriching education, and once-in-a-lifetime attractions each day of our journey. It'll be a summer that you'll simply never, ever forget. Join me and your fellow patriots this August 5th to 12th for this unparalleled adventure. If you want more information and you want to take part in our last-minute pricing sale, my team is waiting to talk to you right now. There are only a handful of cabins left, so don't wait. Click on that link below or go to cruiseinfo.turleytalks.com to learn more. This is going to be an unforgettable trip, and I cannot wait to spend it with you. Click on that link below right now.